All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the first 2021 office hours of the Origin Trail. Today, we got the ever so popular Famous Amos, my homie, here today with us today, too. We thought we'd switch it up a little. New year, new us. So we got Amos on. We're also going to kind of, we did a poll yesterday about how we should handle office hours. And there's been so much talk about the new roadmap and there's been so many questions. We thought it'd be a good idea. I mean, I literally got a list of, of about like 100 questions and I was going through them all and I was like, you know what? I feel like we could really answer a lot of these if we just went through the roadmap and kind of nerded out on it a little bit, and we can take some time going on, skip some lines if they're not super huge to talk about or go on for a while about other lines. So does that make sense, everybody? Does that sound like a plan?
Indeed.
All right.
Sure.
Nice. So I think the first thing on there that everybody wants to talk about anyway is the Starfleet boarding activities. So we know that soon you're going to have a site coming out where we can anybody can donate stake TRAC into on this boarding site, and they'll be able to have their tokens put out for lending and liquidity. So do we have a firm launch date time about when that's going to go live? And I did see that QuantStamp's going to be doing the audit, which is really cool because they're a well-known audit entity in the space, so very respectable too. So I think people will feel really good about that. But as far as about general timeline, can we expect that maybe to start anywhere end of February or so, beginning of February?
Yeah, so maybe it's best if I take that one. Yeah, tentatively we are aiming for those dates. What we're really focused on right now is to get the process by the book, really to its final stage, where the most important thing really is to focus on security. So I'm sure you guys all know or have seen a lot of these projects lately. Well, at least in the last year of the DeFi boom. Basically every week we saw a hack or something, and even with our previous experience way back in the day, we've seen some troubles with smart contracts. So having that said, that's why we have this three-layer approach of attacking it, and therefore we are also going to have to depend on completion of this external security audit, like you said, by QuantStamp. Our idea was to take one of the most reputable companies in the space, which have really audited pretty much everything you can think of, including all of the successful DeFi projects. So in that sense, it's once that process is completed, the staking will immediately commence. Obviously, that will be announced, so it's not going to just pop up and you'll be able to have a rush situation, but it's going to be announced. And we're currently working together with them, so in order to get that process to the end. But the aiming date is really in the first half of February to finish all this process.
Awesome. Oh man, everybody's been pumped about that, and everybody keeps bugging me like, when does it go live? And are we gonna know? And so so don't worry, everybody. It's not gonna be like everybody rush and take down the website kind of thing. So yeah, everybody should.
I might just add, we've had a very good bug bounty response so far. So several contributors have found some minor issues that wouldn't have stopped any really, big, progress on the project. But it's good that because, the more eyes you get on the code, the better. And there's going to be these professional security auditors that are going to look at it from QuantStamp. It's pretty much PhDs in computer science. It's going to be the whole community. And we internally are also doing basically rounds of auditing, which is always best done by developers that didn't write the code. So we have a bunch of people that were involved in writing the code, and then we have people who are just kind of jumping into it, with the completely new perspective to look into it. So yeah, I mean, the process is going pretty well, and I'm very, very confident that it's going to turn out very safe.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, it's if QuantStamp says it's good, I think everybody's pretty much going to trust it at that point. They're they're a pretty reputable name out there. So let's stick to this a little bit. And if you don't, Branimir, this might be more towards you too, but let's talk more about this boarding, the lending pool, if you don't mind. So something Amos will tell you that we keep getting questions all the time about, and we really just don't have the answer for, is what is the lending platform really going to look like, so to speak? So will data holders and data creators both be able to borrow from this lending pool? Will these tokens be able to be borrowed for jobs by data holders, even if they didn't stake in the contract? And will data creators be able to borrow these tokens in order to put jobs on the network? And if so, how is that going to look from a node perspective? Does somebody have to make sure they have a Starfleet wallet, the tokens transferred over to the Starfleet wallet, or are they just going to have their Ethereum TRAC staked and still be able to contribute to the jobs on Starfleet without being somebody who initially staked tokens in the lending pool? If you can go on like a little bit about the details of that, that's one of the biggest questions out there.
So the question, if I'll just try to repeat it, is just the point of kind of staking and how really these tokens play into what's happening on Starfleet, and kind of how are they actually going to be utilized for anything that's being done within the Starfleet environment.
Exactly,
so,
like data creators, data holders, that kind of.
Right.
Correct.
Both roles leverage the token.
Yeah. So basically, what the process is going to look like is that you'll have both sides, right? So data holders and data creators within this boarding process be motivated basically to transfer over to Starfleet. And once, let's say that you put in a 10,000 trace in the contract in Ethereum, what's going to happen is that on Starfleet you're going to have that 10,000 Star TRAC unlocked. So you, as a data holder, will be able to utilize that to stake it as a collateral for the jobs that are going to be on Starfleet, or you'll be able to basically do anything that is within the spectrum of availability on a Starfleet blockchain, either transactions, utilization, whatever's going to be enabled there throughout the entire kind of phase up until a bridge is activated, or even after, right? So you'll be able to utilize this Star TRAC as a token on any on that blockchain. So in that sense, you really have motivation for both sides to partake in this boarding process. So you'll have data holders that have expressed interest to put in the trace in that smart contract, so they would get the Star TRAC on Starfleet and be able to then bid for any jobs that are being posted by data creators. And similarly, you have data creators a great incentive to transition over to Starfleet for jobs that they want to utilize Starfleet for. So in that way, they'll transition whatever amount of trace that they believe is suitable for them, and that they're going to be utilizing within the course of up until the bridge is launched, which is kind of going to be the next phase when you'll be able to again then have a more fluid transitions between Starfleet and Ethereum. So I hope this kind of explains a little bit.
Yeah, so if I'm a node operator today, right, and I have 100,000 tokens staked in all my nodes, I could option to move, say, I don't know, 75,000 of those over to Starfleet, and then I'll then have 75,000 tokens available for Starfleet jobs, correct?
Yeah. Correct.
That's it to say. Okay,
That's
so
it.
This is good. This is good to know. So there's a good incentive if you're going to be providing liquidity in the lending pool. You might as well run a node too. Then it sounds like you kind of should double dip a little in that sense. It'd be I'm not saying you have to, but I'm saying it's advantageous to kind of to take advantage of both.
I mean, yeah, that would be kind of the main point would be to have if you are a data holder within and you want to be a data holder as well, bidding for the jobs on Starfleet, that's your path. So you want to go through that smart contract, you want to lock your trace up in Ethereum, and then you'll have an unlock kind of Star TRAC available on Starfleet. Then you'll be able to use the same node basically, right, to listen to both sides of the Starfleet as well as Ethereum. So it's not really doubling your effort, or you're not setting up an additional node. It's rather the same node listening to both sides. But of course, if you won't have Star TRAC available, then you won't be able to bid for those jobs that are posted on that network. So that's the main point of why you really want to, if you want to partake in that entire kind of all the functionalities that are going to be put on Starfleet, and especially within this period before the bridge is activated, that's going to be that pioneer group of users period when there's going to be utilization of what's available on Starfleet after the boarding process finishes.
And I just want to make it clear to people, I'm sorry, Žiga, I know you're going to step in a second. I just want to make sure that people know that you can still stake tokens and not run a node and still benefit from the effects of the network, correct? As far as having your tokens in there and being used by DCs, for example.
Yeah. I wish Branimir was back by now, but he would be telling you that I mean, you can still run a node as someone who's not running a node per se to get a job, to successfully then put a collateral, win a job, etc. Because you do need to have some prior experience in order to be successful when running jobs. And although what's going to happen with the transitioning into Starfleet is at least two effects. One of them is economies of scale, because we are going to be able to produce much more jobs, helping essentially data creators to produce much more jobs because of a lower cost, essentially allowing for scale, economies of scale. And secondly, economies of scope. So allowing OriginTrail decentralized network to be used not only for the purposes of the use cases that we know today, but in addition to that for personal data control, so like the applications like the OpenPKG, for example, and then what we believe is going to be the big bang of the later stage of the period of this pioneering stage before the bridge is the enablement of the OriginTrail OriginTrail knowledge tools, and the knowledge tools essentially are going to necessitate you to use trace for multiple reasons. In addition to what we know today, so you're going to have to, so as a data creator, you're going to have to spend trace in order to post a job. So that will be required in order to be able to put knowledge onto the network, to say it in a more straight and layman terms. And in order then to be able to sell and to make that knowledge accessible, you're going to be minting a so-called knowledge token, and that knowledge token could be named, let's call it integrity token. So you are collecting data on the sustainability of a specific supply chain. Therefore, you are creating certain knowledge, and this is your kind of proprietary knowledge. And in order to monetize that knowledge, you're going to have to publish that knowledge on the decentralized network, and you're going to be spending trace while doing it. On the flip side, when you're going to be allowing others to access that knowledge, you're going to be collateralizing trace or star trace, which is essentially proxy to the trace on Ethereum chain, in order for others to actually enter that pool of minted tokens, minted supply chain integrity tokens, which are then being matched by the star trace, which is also kind of one-to-one in this Uniswap like marketplace of knowledge tokens. And so the rest of the people who also staked tokens in this pioneering phase will be able to contribute to those multiple decentralized marketplaces of different knowledge tokens. And in that way, we are going to be putting a lot of trace to work, essentially. So not only for the functions that we have right now, which are already like what you're seeing with the likes of BSI, with the likes of Oracle, Scan, etc. What you saw at the liftoff, it's something which is big. But what we expect with this economies of scope, adding data knowledge economy tools, is going to allow for a tremendously higher growth when we add this economies of scope element to it. And Star Trace is going to have an additional function in the sense that you as an owner, quote unquote, of Star Trace, you are not necessarily going to be the one who's going to be running nodes to bid for jobs. You're going to be able to lend your Star Trace, to put it to work to someone else who might be an expert in that. Let's say you, Jason, I know that you've been running nodes for a while now. I still remember that video that you made when none of the people, or a lot of people did not understand what's the difference between OriginTrail, for example, or VeChain or other supply chain, although we're not only supply chain project. So you made a clear distinction. So I know that you have a lot of knowledge already as to how to run a node to successfully bid for a job. Same goes for Amos. So you're gonna have a specialized, let's call it specialists in bidding for data holder jobs in the future. And then on the other side, you're going to have a lot of those who would like to get their trace to work and are going to be involved in this pioneering phase. But instead of them playing with all the parameters, they are going to trust you that you are the one who knows better how to run a node in order to successfully win a job. So we're going to have those who already know it and those who have trace but yet have no sufficient knowledge. So we expect to have multiple positive effects coming from that. And Branimir, are you back? Branimir is still not back. When Branimir is back, you can explain perhaps more into detail how the data holders can also lend their trace or put it to work, even if they're not bidding for jobs.
Yeah, so I was actually about to explain that. First question was really about that. So for those of just a sentence of intro, for those who are not familiar with the details of the process, the data creator nodes, the ones that are actually publishing, indexing data on the network to the data holding jobs, they actually provide and lock up a certain amount of trace that then for the amount of the job running get transferred over to the DH nodes holding the data. So essentially, if you are a DH node, you would need to provide a certain collateral, the stake for each job, and then have a certain stake in order to even be running. And for that, you would need to get trace from somewhere. So up until now, that would have been outside of the protocol completely. But now what we are introducing with the tools and this liquidity services is actually the ability to ingrain this directly into the protocol. So in order to explain that clearly, a DH node would, let's say any DeFi protocol today, you want to lend some tokens like AVE, for example, you need to post up some collateral, right? So in order to guarantee that you will return this token, unless it's a flash loan in one transaction. So if you're posting, let's say ETH, and then you lend some token, after a while you need to return this amount of token plus some interest in order to get your collateral back. Well, here it's a bit of a different, actually better situation, because the DC node has already posted up a significant amount of tokens that are supposed to be earned by the DH. So the DH doesn't necessarily need to post the collateral. The collateral is the job itself. So what you get there from the point of a DH node, you would be able to, let's say you run out of trace, but you want to borrow it. That could be done directly through the protocol, where borrowing would be done through a job collateral handling service, which would lend it from a trace contract and directly put it on the ODN. So no additional activity. The only difference is that when you run a withdraw transaction, that withdraw transaction will again put back that trace that was lended in the first place with some interest. So let's say you lend 100 and there's a certain interest, then this 100 plus the interest, but you earned 200, let's say, on the job. Or so part of the earnings would then go to whoever provided liquidity in this lending contract. Very much like other lending contracts, just as that you're not providing collateral, if that makes sense. So the idea is to utilize the economies that's already going on to enable DH nodes to get to trace easier in that way. And someone who's not running a DH node put their trace to work as a liquidity provider to these services that are interconnected with the ODN smart contracts.
So oh yeah, go Amos.
Before Asa takes the mic again, I just had I want some clarification on a few things in terms of numbers, rewarding. Like what exactly do we have a timeline for when we get more information on how much these LPs are rewarded and how much this kind of information?
Yeah, so all of this is to be specified and discussed through the working groups. So the idea is to actually have a detailed documentation on it through the process of RFCs, as we've done so far. In terms of a specific number, there's like two options there: either a fixed number that's somehow being set in the contract, or a variable type of fee. So not really the fee, but the interest. And to look for that, that's basically going to be sort of a more detailed specification depending on what makes sense. But the point there being that there should not be one sort of centralized decision that says, okay, there's going to be, I don't know, 10%, because it doesn't make any sense. Ideally, we put the liquidity provisioning in such a situation where someone can decide to lend it for even less. If they want.
Gotcha. So if I'm a node runner today, right, and I have TRAC in my node today, do I have to do anything once this boarding contract goes live? Will I have to withdraw and then submit to the boarding contract? Or am I going to have tools available where, kind of like Houston, for example, or the OT or the node profile site, where it knows I have 100,000 TRAC in my node, and then I create a transaction and then just send it over to Starfleet? How's that going to look exactly? Just so people have a heads up.
Yeah, so for the boarding process, there's going to be one security audited gateway into it, which is the website that is designated for staking. And the idea of this website is to be as simple as possible with as little features as possible, because that decreases the security, the attack surface. So in that sense, for the boarding process, there's not going to be a tool that's going to help you withdraw something from an existing contract and then deposit into Starfleet because of this unnecessary complexity. But further in the future, when we come to the bridge phase, that is definitely something that's going to be there. So the interfaces that are going to be made are planned to be made in such a way that it makes it easier to transfer between two chains. But right now, for the first phase, it's really the focus on security. So the less is more, really.
So if I have a node today, say I have all my TRAC is in there today, and I want to say put 50% of that into the lending platform, I should withdraw that to my ledger, then use the boarding site to initiate. Okay, I just want clarity, just so people have an idea of what to expect. That's good to know. In the staking phase, the 50 million TRAC, and I kind of joke about this sometimes, where some people think it sounds like a lot, 50 million TRAC. I think that's going to fill up in like 2 seconds personally. And when I looked at the survey results that you guys put out, I thought it was interesting because we surveyed people that even know about it right now, right? This is just people who know about it. And it was about 60 million, I think, already that was committed to wanting to do it. We don't even have numbers of what people would put in who don't even know about it yet, or rewards or anything.
Nothing.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt if that's closer to 100 million once that goes live. So that's why I think it's funny when we think 60 million is this big number, like, oh, that's a big commitment. I think it's going to be a lot bigger than that once the news comes out. So is there any ideas around if there's enough popularity, could that increase? Could we say, hey, or 50 million, but we can allow up to 80 million or something? Would that be something that is optional, or is that ship already kind of sailed?
I mean, ship doesn't sail until the smart contract is deployed.
Right.
It would definitely make sense to do that somewhere in the middle of audit if we were to do that. But according to the latest results of a survey, there are some 60 million tokens kind of committed in this registered interest process, and it seems that there's a very, very high interest. It's going to be very interesting to see once the smart contract is out, how the transactions pile up, and I mean, hopefully we can create a lot of interest also outside of the OriginTrail community, because for the first time we are going to be showing how staking is done properly for something outside of crypto. We're all we have an idea as to what is achievable within crypto, but no one is talking about the mainstream and the things that OriginTrail is already doing mainstream. So crypto is what, like $1 trillion or something, a bit more. Supply chains, I mean, total revenue generated through supply chains is 75 trillion USD on a yearly basis, and that's like supply chains in a very, very strict traditional sense. And of course, we would like to show that what we're doing here with the amount of trace being locked in is a serious commitment, not only to achieve something in crypto. We're using crypto as a tool rather than the goal in itself, but actually achieve something in mainstream. So in order to achieve something in the mainstream field, we really need a serious commitment. And we felt 50 million is a kind of a very serious commitment. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's very hard to recall another crypto project which has such a tremendous part of its liquidity put into something so serious. There are not many projects doing so. And actually, I mean, personally, I would like to see that we even have more trace staked for such a serious purpose. But I think right now, 10% is already a very, very serious commitment.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, it's a big number when you think about it. I mean, that's 10%. And like I said, that could be 20% by the time all the hype gets out and more people understand that OriginTrail doesn't just track chicken and is being used by large enterprise globally. You know,
I mean, we need to leave it. I mean, we could do 100, but we still need to leave some breadcrumbs outside for anyone else to join in. We should be inclusive. One of the most important principles is inclusivity.
Lock it all up.
So I mean, I will say 10% of the supply locked up. I think that is a serious commitment, even if it's not, you know, standard across crypto. That's pretty serious to me. I will take things a little bit off topic here, but keeping in tune with the roadmap, I actually really want to get into this because I'm super excited about it. So yes, this is a little bit selfish, but I want to hear more about what you guys are doing with PolkaDot, as that was the, of course, main section of the roadmap. So it took up a big portion of it. Very excited to see what's going on there. What can you guys talk about with PolkaDot?
Yeah, maybe it's best if I start because there's a lot to talk about. And we've been doing a lot of interesting things actually. And it's so far been a great experience working with such a team. Parity, in my opinion, has always been the best team in crypto, I have to say, because they are,
well, second to OriginTrail, just
second
best. Stand corrected.
And nobody dresses better than Žiga and Tomaž.
I agree.
Oh, I'm in that sense very impressed to see the track record because there's a lot of it's not easy to ship. Like it's always easy to speak about like, you know, how great you're going to build something and then it takes years to build, and these people have done it like consistently over the years. They built the best client for the Ethereum blockchain, and it's been used over many different networks. Apart from that, they've been building bridges. They're building a whole new ecosystem, and I mean the sheer experience there is really enormous. So having that said, it's really I have to say a privilege to be building with the PolkaDot ecosystem. And what's really going on right now is in 2 tracks. So you guys, the 2 of you know more, but like for the rest of the audience, the Starfleet initiative is in full swing, and we're building the Starfleet blockchain on the code base, which is actually the substrate code base, which is the same code base being used in PolkaDot. We're, of course, making it customized and tailored for what is needed for the Starfleet blockchain. But we're building that together with the Parity team. So we have frequent check-ins together. They're actually doing technical audits of our code. We have one next week, actually, early. And that's, in a way, great support because it gives, like I said in the beginning, for those smart contracts, it gives you both kind of an outside perspective of what you're building, but not just any outsider. You're getting the outside perspective of the person who actually built that code. So I couldn't sort of wish for a better, let's say, support on that, because that's mentorship, technical support, and building support all in one. And in that way, Substrate Builders program is pretty good. We're not the only team there, so there's other teams. So these teams actually work together sometimes and share knowledge. So that's just one aspect of it, and we're in constant communication with the team on the Starfleet development. Now, there's a lot of stuff to be developed for Starfleet, so it's not just the blockchain. There's the RPC service. There's a lot of these things that we consult together with them. And apart from that, on the other track, which is the PolkaDot initiative within the same working group, the PolkaDot task force is really specifying how this is going to develop in terms of the integration. So one of the things you will see in the roadmap is actually the integration RFC, the TRL2. It's a very new thing, PolkaDot, and the way that the functionalities are somewhat different from Ethereum. So in that sense, we are looking at ways together with Parity team how to make this integration the best possible way. And having that said, there's going to be a lot of details published in that specific RFC. But currently, one of these topics, for example, is what is the best approach? Like, should we look into pair chains or pair threads, depending on the rest of the ecosystem? Because PolkaDot integration doesn't stop everything else from working. Ethereum will still be there as one of the blockchains that plugs into ODN. Starfleet is going to be there, and all of these things need to be taken sort of into consideration together. So in that regard, working on these two initiatives is the priority, but it's not the only thing. On the sort of the third aspect is really how to integrate, and this I believe is going to be the biggest thing, because it's actually going to be how to bring the knowledge economy tools that we're building to the PolkaDot ecosystem. How can PolkaDot ecosystem benefit from them? Because the first two are really technical. You know, these are, we already know where we're heading, what we get from it. But from this, we're actually bringing 10 times more at least to the other ecosystem. And that is, I'm very excited actually to speak about all of these tools, but essentially what it enables is such a very good building block system. Kind of like when people say that DeFi is the Lego for digital money, right? Well, think of Legos for knowledge. Think of having the ability to compose knowledge from different data sets, which ODN is really built for, and having the ability to monetize them, but in all kinds of use cases, which the whole ecosystem obviously is going to be interesting as a field to explore. So in that sense, that is the most important aspect of working with them, really finding out how, because when you're actually connected to PolkaDot, all of these blockchains are in a way connected. PolkaDot itself as the main relay chain acts as a bridge, and that means that all of the ecosystems become more scalable because all of them has its separate consensus and really separate, let's say, scale, depending on the ecosystem, but they all can work together and can utilize the same, which is in a way very hard to do right now. So that is going to be the biggest thing, and that's something we're working on already.
So in the Substrate Builders group, has there been any interest from other teams of things like subgraphs, for example, running like their own subgraphs or anything along those lines? Like, I imagine working closely with all these different Substrate projects, some have grown interest to your platform too. So has there been any kind of rubbing elbows with any other projects that have shown some interest and you've seen interest in too?
Yeah, we had some interesting discussions. We've really had discussions on two levels. One level is knowledge sharing when it comes to Substrate. You know, so someone would run into a problem, and someone else already has run into it and sort of can help explain, and that's one of the tracks, the technical tracks. But also the discussions of really getting to know each other that's going on as well. And it really helps that we finally have all of these scoped out and explained, but also through specific examples, because it's kind of hard to talk about knowledge tools in abstract sense until you have the implementations that we've already had, so people can actually relate to, let's say, OpenPKG as a tool, and which is, by the way, going to be also coming out in Q1 as something that can be used and is totally available. So having that said, there's been discussions, but without having these things specified and really told about, we only had sort of high-level discussions. So I'm very curious to see the response of the teams when we actually show them the updated documentation, what they can do with the ODN, because for developers that is the key thing. Then you can start playing around with it, and that's why one of the cool things that's coming out is really the ODN Warp testnet. It's already in the making, and
I was about to ask you about that actually. Yeah, if you can go on a little bit about the testnet and
sure. Yeah, the testnet is going to be the first dual chain testnet of OriginTrail. It's actually been heavily tested in the lab environment, which is our own internal environment. So we've done quite a few things. There's a lot of automated testing already being performed, but the real thing is really putting it out in the wild. So this warp testnet is going to be such a test, and we want to run it as soon as possible because we get as much time as possible before the ODN goes live on the mainnet, this code base. So actually, I would like to use this opportunity to invite everyone to try out the warp testnet node when it's out. It should be out very, very soon. And that would actually help us discover any potential bugs or any issues that we might have not been finding in the lab environment because it's just a different environment. So having that said, the new testnet is going to be plugged into 2 Ethereum testnets. It's going to be showing how jobs are running on both of them and how you can actually monitor that through your code and have your node run with both consensus implementations. And apart from that, we also have spoken with Luke from OT-Hub. So he's already working on updating the.
Poor Luke.
Yeah, Luke. Luke.
Every time you guys come up with something new, Luke's got to go to work.
Like 4 hours every day.
Oh, he's already having a good idea how to actually get this update into OT-Hub so it can show what's really going on both of the networks. So yeah, that's going to be a very interesting release coming out really soon. So stay tuned for that and cool. Jump in if you guys have a chance.
All right, I'm going to jump. Sorry if this is going to be kind of jump around a lot, but it's just because I'm going through the roadmap, so it's a little, not as much flow as it normally has. But the NOS liquidity provisioning, let's get back to that for a second. So there's so many things that now the project has branching off with, knowledge tokens, and we got a lending pool platform, and now we're going to have another blockchain. And so has the NOS liquidity provisioning, is that going to be changing at all now that this liquidity pool is coming out? Is it still going to operate the way it was initially designed, where it's going to be sourcing tokens from different decentralized platforms, for example, or even centralized platforms? Or is NOS now going to completely use the lending platform? I guess that's not fully clear how NOS still fits into this with its liquidity provisioning.
Yeah, I think the logic behind NOS is it's fairly has been kind of the same, or what we've been following was always the fact that what you want to achieve is to have a frictionless way to utilize ODN for enterprise clients, right? So that's really what you're trying to achieve here, is when someone comes and says, okay, the certificate needs to get integrity, bam, there's one click, they know how much it costs them in some sort of a currency that is easy for them to bookkeep, like USD or Euro or British pounds or whatever, and that they have that understanding. And once that happens, that there's an easy integration that would enable for the cryptocurrencies to be available, purchased, and then utilized for that purpose to publish something on the ODN. So that's the logic that keeps transitioning to the Starfleet as well. Obviously, as we are discussing kind of the integrations and kind of the details of the NOS, obviously this takes it gains a bit on the complexity, because obviously Starfleet chain is a new blockchain. It's an environment that's kind of hermetically closed for a while. That's also another thing to take into account. But basically, any work that's being done within that is done to enable this in a very similar concept. So there's not a change in the approach or change in what's trying to be achieved here. It's just kind of updating to the status of ODN, and including basically what the Starfleet chain support kind of, so that basically the users of NOS can also utilize the Starfleet chain in the same fashion that I just kind of went through.
Okay, so NOS will still be using things like Uniswap, even though the lending pool's out. But if they need to use Starfleet, they'll have to use somehow.
Yeah, there's I wouldn't really it's because it is in a way it will be, there's still different also methods of how you can really set it up, whereas either direct or indirect, but it's always following that logic, and it's always that concept kind of that needs to be taken into account. It's lower the time to purchase so that you can have a very as real-time thing that's happening, so you really take out that risk for the enterprise client to take on any volatility. but enable all the functionalities of ODNs, in a snap of a finger. So that's
yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the validators for a second. And I know there's probably a lot of NDA, can't tell you anything type stuff with that so far, I would think, because you're working with probably some large enterprise, some of these enterprise companies. But is there anything that you can give us as a hint to maybe who you're looking to be some of those enterprise level validators, or any of those validators for that matter, even the community ones? Has there been more thought into that, or anything you can even discuss?
And perhaps also you guys can give us some context as to how enterprise is actually viewing the solution. What are they saying? Are they excited? Or like what is big business saying about you guys?
Oh, okay, that's one question, but a lot of content behind it. So obviously, the reason why we feel that confident that we can pull the Starfleet so quickly through is because we have a very, very good feedback from the mainstream, from enterprise users. Some of them you got a chance to meet on Liftoff and some other events, and there are some others which are very much involved in what we do as Trace Labs. And actually, what you see, what we have published and what we have already announced, it's a fraction of what we are actually working on. And already this conversation right here, it's somehow kind of we feel sorry we cannot share more, but there is a lot of validation behind it, obviously. Some things that we are feeling confident about, and validators, so the number of validators that we aim to attract before the launch of the Starfleet, we believe should be no problem to impress and to attract because of our prior experience with them. As to who is going to be a validator and what kind of DNA we're seeking in those who are becoming validators, one of the characteristics that we're seeking is a high reputation on the market. Secondly, they need to be kind of technically savvy, so that they do know what they're going to what they're going into as they accept to become a validator. And also thirdly, that they have a certain internal roadmap to work with Trace Labs in the future in utilizing the OriginTrail decentralized network. And we have the enterprise batch, 4 of them. We have a Trace Alliance batch, also 4 of them, community batch, and also Trace Labs as someone who is very much partaking in the development of the OriginTrail ecosystem, to say the least. And across the board, so within all 3 buckets, we're seeking those same characteristics. So reputation, some past experience and technical savviness to run things in the OriginTrail ecosystem, and kind of an internal roadmap, an internal intent to be using the technology for the purposes of their business processes, or within the case of the OriginTrail community, those who are going to be running validators nodes, that they already have shown past experience in running DH nodes, that they understand what they're doing, that they're also happy with being publicly, quote unquote, exposed, because they're also lending their reputation towards the OriginTrail ecosystem. So those are some of the most important characteristics. And hopefully we can talk more specifically about validators, at least the first batch of them in February. And it's a very important job for us for the community, for all those involving the Starfleet, to understand who's behind it. I mean, we're very, very much optimistic, not only within the batch of the companies that you guys know about that work with us. They have a lot of reputation, of course. Some of them work in assurances services, so there is no higher reputation than that. There are also some other partners that work with us on a weekly basis, essentially on some other European projects, which also very much tightly involve decentralized technology, decentralized services. And although they might not be the most well-known companies, but they have very, very much high reputation within the government sector, within the sector of European H2020 grants. So there's a very, very huge bucket to pick validators from. although perhaps majority of them are not visible to you as someone you would connect to OriginTrail or Trace Labs immediately. Yeah, I hope that answers those two questions.
Yeah, definitely does. I mean, it's interesting because it sounds like we could see validators that we wouldn't even have known that would have been even an idea of someone to be a validator.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, actually, I'll take the next question, Ace. I'll let it off, you know, give you some ease. You know, in the words of the great Ivan, he says, respect the pamp, right? So let's talk about this question here. I won't ask you to be disrespectful in revealing too much information about the pamp, but what exactly is going on with this custodian services support? This was in the roadmap. No one really knows exactly what it is. No one knows what's going on. No one understands it. So I would like to just bring it up. Maybe you guys can talk 2 seconds if it's too much details, because it has institutional access to the TRAC token. So, you know, yeah. If you guys
It's a
can talk
big deal.
Yeah. So after the KuCoin hack, you must remember that we spoke about our priorities, and one of strategic priorities is also to expose the token to as many markets as possible. And that led us to, you know, get our word out to as many exchanges as possible so that they don't know about us. We relied on partners. We've been relying on even the community itself helped tremendously when it came to raising voice about what we do. And throughout that process, it became obvious that we need to leverage partners very much heavily when it comes to helping to get the token to as many markets as possible, because eventually that's also crucial for the success of the technology itself. And one of the learnings that we have gotten during that process is that we need solid partners which are so much vested in the token itself that it is in their best interest to see it exposed to as many markets as possible. So it's not only us, the core team or the community itself, it's also some of the institutional players. Should there be exposed, they're going to have a lot of interest to do that. And we are, we were very proud that certain efforts of ours actually yielded results in the actually quite recent weeks. And one of the things that we managed to achieve, and once we fully achieve that thing that we put also in the roadmap, so exposing tokens to institutional investors, we are going to be seeing Trace being available for, you know, bigger entrance into our kind of community, and at the same time, those entrants will be able to very much seamlessly operate their tokens between different markets. And so this we see that as a process. The more institutional supporters get in, the greater the exposure, the greater the probability of Trace getting exposed to many more markets. And one of the tools actually that's already been live since a couple of days, where access to Trace has been enabled, is Fireblocks. It's a service that's being used by institutional players. We are hearing that I think a couple, but for sure one of them has already entered the Trace ecosystem, and we hope to see that increase in the coming days. And actually, this is actually how the dashboard looks like currently, where Trace is being available to bigger buyers, not only to purchase, but actually for the custodianship. So because, you know, we need to understand that institutional players, they don't want to just go and play around on Uniswap, so they need adapted user experience. And this is what we aim to achieve with that item on a roadmap. And the good thing is that we are already here. So this item in many ways is very much achieved. And now we're looking forward to have additional bigger players coming in and therefore exposing token additionally to more markets. That said, we have still very much ongoing kind of efforts to get the word about the Trace out as much as possible. It's great to see that also with the PolkaDot as a partner, there is an interest from their ecosystem. So things are finally kind of coming to certain fruition when it comes to exposing Trace to additional markets. And I expect when we complete the staking process for the Starfleet, things are going to get very much juicy for all of the stakeholders not yet being involved. And perhaps this is also one of the reasons why we cannot just put 100% of the entire Trace token to staking, because we really need external kind of support. But I'm really happy that we have managed to actually achieve some progress, and that there is an interest general for the token itself, and the results are here. And we hope to see very good results in the future as well. We're not stopping here.
And I'm familiar with Fireblock. They're a big entity. They source a lot of liquidity from things like Bitstamp, and I mean all the big exchanges. Yeah. So it lends you to believe that if Fireblock's willing to help source your liquidity, there must be more interest from some of these other exchanges to add the token at some point to be liquidity sources for this. So I know there's nothing you might even know about that or can say, but
no,
that's the idea.
That we as a core team, we are expert in building technology, also expert in the adoption of the technology. And in order to get the word out about the Trace, you need partners. And it's normal. I mean, it's something that we have come to learn. It's a serendipity. It's a very positive outcome so far. But it seems that this is the way to go in this industry. And
yep. I'm not a painter. I'll hire a painter.
Right.
You guys aren't. That's not your gig. So you got to hire these external entities. So that makes sense. That's awesome. So I'm gonna add. This is kind of one of those. Again, I feel like I ask it every office hours, but let's talk about jobs for a second, right? And we don't need specific numbers or anything or guessing any numbers, but is it safe to say that once Starfleet goes live, is there data waiting to get thrown on the network? Like, do you know, and even just customers, people you've dealt with or companies, they're like, hey, once Starfleet goes live, we got some data we want to start pumping through there. Is that safe to say?
I mean, perhaps just a short entry, and then Branimir can take over the technical aspect of it. So economies of scale are very important here. Already with the use cases and with business processes that are being enabled by OriginTrail with BSI scan and all the things that you have learned so far, and others we don't know yet about, all of us, OriginTrail can actually play a greater role once Starfleet is out, which means that for the recurring operations of those all separate use cases, we can extract tremendously more jobs out. Because the scale allows you to, for example, not to bundle, let's say, 50 certificates together or 50 training certificates together, but actually unbundle them, and in that way you get, like, I don't know, potentially even 50 times more jobs from what we have seen so far. So what we're looking into already for existing clients is like a huge jump, but the scale does not end here. As you make things more affordable, quote unquote, you are going beyond the early adopters market. So you have those who are becoming early majority, and then you go mainstream, etc. And Starfleet is making that possible because things are becoming much more affordable. When we benchmark ourselves right now to other crypto projects, when it comes to data exchanges, we're already well beyond them. But we are not comparing ourselves to the crypto industry. We're comparing ourselves to the mainstream, to the likes of IBM, to the likes of Oracle blockchain platform. And this is where we need to kind of also be benchmarking prices those clients using such services are paying. And when we achieve the level of affordability, of course, the scale is going to be up because companies are going to be willing and ready to be using OriginTrail for things that right now they're not deciding to because it's simply too expensive. And another thing is, so from the economies of scale to economies of scope, once we have Starfleet out, we are also going to be enabling different additional value verticals in which OriginTrail makes a compelling business case. And in that way, we're going to have both scale and scope, economies of scope with OriginTrail once we achieve that stage. And perhaps, Branimir, we spoke about it shortly before we had this call, but total graph size is a very important concept here. And Branimir, he has a very important point when it comes to relation between total graph size and jobs. And of course, more other things.
Somewhere the question, the discussion popped up around TGS and like the metric, because it's a new metric. We already kind of assumed that it's not gonna be that clear, but perhaps it's a good opportunity to clarify it when the question around jobs is posted. Essentially, the TGS measures the amount of data in the network and how much the data is connected. So it measures the amount of knowledge in that sense, because that is, in that sense, if you're looking at it from a semantic web standard point of view, it measures the number of triples. But in this case, it's a little more wider. So the TGS grows as the amount of knowledge on the network grows, but it doesn't grow linearly. So the key point there is that adding more knowledge to the network doesn't necessarily mean growing the TGS too much. So that would necessarily mean that because there's no duplication of the data on the network, and I think, Jason, we spoke about it on one of the AMAs, that means the TGS grows slower. So in that sense, the bigger the TGS, the harder it is to grow it. You need some new stuff to add to it that's not already there, because you cannot duplicate stuff, right? So that means the growth of TGS is the higher it is, the harder it is to grow it. So that means you need more data replications to go out.
So that means these TGS numbers are astronomical then when you talk about it like that, because like it's crazy to go from, say, like 10 million to 15 million, for example. That's a huge jump going with that when you take the deduplication into
yes. So it's not linear at all. It's very sublinear, and that means that you need in a way exponential growth of the new stuff coming into the network in order to grow the TGS. And that's typically when you look at one of the integrations, like let's say the poultry case. The company is publishing jobs every time there's new data, but not every time does the TGS grow as much, because sometimes they refer to all data, all the identifiers, all the farmers, things that are already on the network. So the TGS in time grows less and less from one single integration, but the number of jobs stays. So having that said, when you look at this number, in a way, yes, it is astronomical. Because we're, like Žiga said, we're still in this early adopter phase. But from the perspective of where we want the technology to be, it's not that big, because the idea is to enable a whole knowledge economy. And that is, any really useful knowledge should be able to touch the ODN. And that's why we need a scale. We should not have a blocker of having a blockchain transaction for a set of proofs which are important but less important than the knowledge itself, cost as much as for the knowledge, or much more, like in the realm of tens or even hundreds of dollars. That's unfortunately it does not work, and so that's why it's really it's kind of a cutthroat situation until that is solved. So having that said, big numbers in TGS, absolutely, like the ambition is to have them even bigger, and the ambition for this year is to have it grow through all the cases by enabling scale, and then also onboarding a lot of new entities using the ODN.
And you gave an example once, and just so people are clear, and this is the way at least I understood it, is like, say I say the sky is red, and then I say the sky is blue. Well, I'm not going to reuse the sky because that's already in there, but the blue and the red become two different entries into that. So that's how that visually you can think of how that deduplication works.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is exactly explained really well. So you're talking about two entities, or an entity and a property, which you can think of as two elements of the graph, and then some relation between them. The sky red is, and you could, or for example, I don't know, you are the son of her father, right? So there's this relationship, and then maybe you have a brother, and then If you introduce your brother to the graph, you introduce another entity and a one connection that says that he's also like the son of your father, right? So these two sentences, the sky is red and the sky is blue, they don't introduce both three different things into the ODN. The second one introduces two, because it introduces the relation and introduces the new color. And then the next time when you say the car is blue, you don't necessarily you don't duplicate the blue.
Right.
You just add the car. So every time, and the more of these things that you have mapped out, and now we're giving simple examples, but think of examples like supply chain identifiers. Think of any single barcode you've thought about. Like every time it's added, no need to add it again. And that is the whole beauty of the knowledge graph, because it gets indexed. That's why these data holding jobs, that's what they're actually meant to do. They're meant to index data, and not all of the data gets to be in the job. That's why you won't see, for example, data from, let's say, the scan implementation, because a lot of that gets to remain within the actual permission part of the scan node. But actually, all of that data has some indexes that need to be on the network. So in order for that permission data to be trusted, so that you can actually verify its integrity. So without further really ado, that all of these additions to the TGS are going to be much harder once we map out a large amount of things globally. They just are.
I can't even imagine when you have to go to like 100 million to 105 million. Like that's going to be like it seems like a small jump. That's going to be like a crazy magnitude bigger.
Yeah, but think about it. That's why the measurement is so good, because if we don't grow the TGS too much, that means that the knowledge on the network doesn't grow too much. We don't introduce new things. You haven't learned new concepts. You haven't, and this is really one of the things that anyone's even remotely related into, like any type of machine learning or AI type of thing, is this is the whole thing, like how you can actually get new things out of the existing data. And it's going to be amazing, because you can actually infer a lot of the stuff the more the graph grows. Anyway, the whole point there being that the bigger it is, the harder it is to grow, and that's why the graph is the perfect way to capture this exponentially growing data. Because think of not taking this approach. Think of having data, like your phone produces so much data in a day, but think about like how much data is produced by all the IoT devices, all the enterprises,
right?
All of basically it's just exponentially growing. And if we don't think of it as a thing that connects to one another and deduplicated, then we're growing an amount of junk that just like sitting around on disparate devices. So after you kind of get the whole point of the knowledge graph, it's really hard to switch back thinking of raw data and like talking about data is the oil. It is the oil, but what does the oil do? Well, it has some purpose that is useful for in a certain context when it's used with something, such as data being used with other data.
And I'm going to be an oil tycoon. That's my goal.
Well, I'm already an oil tycoon. Actually, we're getting closer to like an hour, so I did want to squeeze in some really, I don't know, this is really on my heart. All right, so I saw first of all, I've been scouring the internet, like I don't know, maybe I'm looking for gold or something, for trusted bytes, information on trusted bytes. Can't find anything. Trust me, I've dug everywhere. So I know you guys can't talk about that because obviously the BSI and all that, but Dan did talk about it. So I wanted to kind of bunch together a couple questions. First, the GS1 event, the global event taking place. What can you talk about that? And trusted bytes, can you give some idea as to what's going on there and what does that look like? Because from my understanding, trusted bytes is a software that, or our implementation that allows you to track the temperatures and whatnot of a particular item through a supply chain, possibly being used to track COVID tests and whatnot based on what Dan had in his screen share. So yeah, what can you guys say?
Yeah, I'm always the one that's after 3 seconds of silence.
Yeah, like, all right, I'll take one for the
break
team.
the first, yeah, I mean, rightfully so, you weren't able to find a lot on the on Trusted Bytes on online yet, because the project hasn't officially launched yet. So as that will happen, we'll definitely be unveiling more, but it's a very exciting project indeed, because it takes some of the elements that you mentioned and it really connects it together with the import process into the UK. So like, especially now with that getting a little bit more complex, that's a very important topic to be as optimal as possible. So I think that's how much we can unveil. There's also some very interesting partners there that are going to be involved in the project that makes this even more special for us. But yeah, it's a definitely very, very exciting thing, and especially under the auspices of Innovate UK. So that's very, but it will be fairly soon too that we'll be able to speak more about it, and you'll also hear others speaking more about it. So your queries over the knowledge graph over the internet are going to become more fruitful. But yeah, we're psyched. It's going to be a good one for this year. And speaking of that, I mean, the GS1 event as well, right? So yeah, we've been, I think now it's the third time in a row, right? That's like quite a big, very big, basically credibility boost for us in terms of just validation that the way we are approaching the utilization of these so important standards is really not only kind of useful for us, but also very appreciated by such an global organization like GS1. So they invite us always to come and really explain how bridging this DLT with GS1 with enterprise adoption is being carried out, and we always come up with with new advanced concepts and deployments that were made in the 1 year's time, basically between these events. So I think that's one of the things what keeps bringing us back, and so we're quite excited that we just got the confirmation. Again, we'll, as soon as that's going to be more available, then we'll be able to speak more about it when the kind of the programs and the whatnots are going to be out there, so we'll be able to speak more. But for now, it's it's like we'll be able to present some of the work that was done also in that forum, which for us is quite cool. And speaking of cool things, I saw that we had like a high of 86 people today on the office hours, which I think is like this must be a new record or something, right?
That's definitely a record. That's going to be a lot more that they have in baseline open office hours. I can tell you that much. But so speaking to
okay, I'll refrain from saying it.
But what you were going off what you were just talking about, actually, the GS1 event. What's the deal with GS1 EPCIS 2.0? Like, I remember originally it looked for like I thought a December launch date. It's January. We haven't really heard anything. Are we going to expect to see the 2.0 spec come out maybe on this global forum?
Yeah, I mean, Phil told us January. He was like, this is what coming out in January, guys.
Because I imagine this enables new functionality for the ODN, which means more data, which means more knowledge, which means more jobs. So.
Yeah, so from that news from the standard working group is really that there's still some details to be sorted out. So the actual working group wasn't confident enough to release the standard yet because there are some issues that are being answered. And that is because there's really a lot of new things getting in. For example, there's a standardized REST interface. That's something that wasn't available previously, which is actually really cool because it's gonna provide a completely standardized interface to the EPCIS data. So far, it has been done through something which is less of a modern interface, let's say. So now we're going to have a modern REST-based interface, and in the last couple of meetings, that's really been the focus. But the standard is being finalized, and I actually cannot say anything about the date myself. It's really not up to us, but it's getting very close, and it's being prototyped. So it's not a blocker for development. So development is already ongoing. These are like issues that are being resolved on what makes the most sense long term of how to use something, so that it, from the integration point, that you don't need to introduce 2.1 next year because we figured out like a bunch of problems with 2.0, the standard. But it's going to enable a lot of cool things. For example, for the first time, you'll be able to attach IoT data, sensor data directly into the EPCIS structure. you're going to be able to actually use more events that explain the situations even better, because so far that's been sort of the learning that it's what they really are doing there through the working group is deciding on how knowledge is to be interpreted through a certain serialized data structure. And for knowledge to be usable, you need to have ontologies, and ontologies mean, like, explaining these relations, like the one I mentioned, you are the father of your son. Well, these concepts are part of this. And not to go too technical, it's not a technical AMA,
Yeah.
but that's it's once you said that, you kind of designated the route. But it's going to be a really cool thing, and we're already working on implementing the 2.0 EPCS features inside the decentralized EPCS repository. You guys have, I'm sure, seen the demo on the liftoff event.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this prototype is being further extended, and it's going to be very soon that we are going to see some of these features, even though the standard is not fully done. But it's the details that are being figured out. So OriginTrail is going to be one of the first technical solutions that is going to support the new standard, and it's going to be fit to attract all these companies wanting to try the standard themselves, because it's open source. So there is no really cost to getting into it. So for a lot of implementators, that is, if you're a developer, if you ever tried to build something, first thing you do is you find some open source implementation online. You try to find some code that someone already wrote. Well, that's part of the thing that ODN is gonna offer, and that's gonna be the same logic for the upcoming tools. So for all the knowledge tools, basically, so anybody can just use and build on top.
Awesome. Yeah, that's going to be exciting, especially the IoT stuff. When you start seeing that data come in, forget it. That's going to be tons of data. Let's talk about this. This is probably one of the more fun topics to talk about. We got Amos. He's going to be doing some of the courses, the 101 course for Ivan on Tech Academy. Congratulations, Amos.
Why, thank you, sir.
Couldn't think of a better person to do the job. So we're all really excited about that. And I'm sure you're excited too.
Oh, yes, I am. You know that, right?
Have you already started?
Was that, Ziga?
Was that a question for Amos or us?
It's just a general statement. I mean, yeah. I mean, anything you want to add?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm really happy to see Amos to join us with this effort, and I wish we had an idea about this even before. It would actually help us speed the whole process very much. But I think timing now is even better, because one of the things, not in addition to the educational tools, educational courses that we aim to roll out in this quarter, first kind of batch of these together with the Ivan on Tech platform, so the next one that is following is the evangelist program, which essentially in the beginning is a program that will help us equip everybody who needs OriginTrail capabilities in whatever sector with appropriate tools, with appropriate knowledge, with appropriate guidance. And this is kind of the next stage to which we are going to come after we get the educational courses out together with Amos. And we expect to have that out in the second quarter. And this is going to be a very kind of a big competitive advantage for all of those who are going to go through courses and then in addition enroll into the evangelist program, because in addition to that, they're going to be equipped with the knowledge of how to use not only the ODN, but also how to use standards appropriately, standards like GS1, EPCS 2.0, which is actually exploding in its value proposition, and also some other standards very important for the decentralized identities like the verifiable credentials. And we as Trace Labs core developer are no longer capable of supporting all the adoption that is aiming to get into the OriginTrail, and we need to seek additional tools. And with the new year, we felt there's a need for this additional new approach, which is going to help us expand the outreach of the OriginTrail through the so-called evangelists, who are going to be very well equipped who are going to be also incentivized because they're going to most probably be doing that in the scope of their already existing consultancy services, or the consultancy services that might be spin out of the evangelist program. So this is kind of the longer term ambition here, to have more people involved in this, and also to learn from those people who hopefully are going to also participate in Trace Alliance, and then in working groups, sharing knowledge as to how to improve the open source code, etc. So we're looking to essentially bring more value into the ecosystem and also more value outside of the ecosystem. And if we look at the GS1, so far we have been very much successful in seeing and helping them understand how to use not only blockchain technology, but also decentralized knowledge graph technology, using also the GS1 standards. And what is very encouraging is that we're getting the impulse from GS1 to show them and to share knowledge with them as to how to use data marketplaces, which in the next phase are going to become knowledge tools, or at least some learnings from there are going to be embedded within the knowledge tools. And all of this is very much in the interest of the industry. And we should not forget that the likes of GS1 Global are working with Google hand in hand to essentially come up with the ideas as to how to leverage those standards. And we believe that we have a very compelling value proposition for the future, because we're bringing in decentralization. So we are using decentralized knowledge graph, not just graph technology, but decentralized knowledge graph, which has some very important implications for the way individuals are also regaining control over data. So we believe that we're still, very much fond of the word OriginTrail is a Google for supply chains, because essentially it is, but with a very, very important addition of being decentralized. And it's really great to see that we have GS1 and all that interest, which is already being manifested in the real adoption, what we see on the network. But the potential is way, way bigger than what we can seize by ourselves. And that's why Amos, Ivan on Tech Platform Academy, and the courses that he's going to help us deliver, and then later on the Evangelist program, are going to be, we believe, a very, very important tooling to achieve even faster adoption.
Awesome. Yeah. And you kind of, going on to what you were just talking about there for a second, kind of bridges off of this, but the open PKG stuff that you got coming up on the roadmap. So public beta release we should be seeing, but global identity provider partnership. And is there anything you can tell us about it? Maybe you can't tell us who's interested in using open PKG that you know of, but maybe what type of industry they're a part of. Is it just supply chain, or should we be seeing
no,
this?
it's wider. It's much wider, and within the scope. So Trace Labs is also building product solutions, but generally what we're aiming towards is building tools, and those tools which are using OriginTrail as a backbone for the decentralized knowledge graph can be useful in the already existing suite of some other companies' applications. And we cannot talk about names, of course, until we get everything to a fruition, and that's why we put it into, I think, is it Q2? So somewhere down the line. Sorry, Q1. Yeah,
Q1. Yeah.
But once we have more to show together with that partner, then we're going to be telling more about what is being enabled using those tools. But definitely, this partnership is not linked to supply chains only. It's actually much wider than that, and it aims more towards the individual holding decentralized identities and using that decentralized identity not only for the vanilla purposes, but even to enroll, to sign into services also relevant to crypto, like crypto exchanges. But I think that's enough said for the time being when it comes to the being a part of the global identity provider. The whole thing actually is coming from the fact that OriginTrail and Trace Labs as a core builder is getting more and more attention and more supporting from the industry. And we also see that we can bring in benefits from that, from what we are achieving within Trace Labs into the into the OriginTrail ecosystem.
Good. Yeah. I mean, sounds bigger than a company. So, I mean, I know you can't say anything, but that starts having me think that
Sounds
this
like
could
a
be more.
network of companies, maybe.
Oh,
Never
or-
know.
Or a country. Oh.
Ooh.
But all right, yeah, we're kind of wrapping up. But do you guys want to talk about the white paper at all? What we should be expect from the technical white paper? I mean, with all the stuff coming up, I can't imagine it's going to get too more technical than it already is. But I guess it sounds like there'll be more stuff coming up.
Yeah. Actually, the ambition with the white paper had been increasing already last year. So we decided to push that forward to see some other things coming to fruition, and then we can involve more into this technical white paper. But definitely is going to touch upon the next paradigm shifting OriginTrail knowledge economy phase, and also the knowledge economy tools and how they also what impacts and what implications that they bring to tokenomics. So all of this is going to be described more technically in that white paper, which we aim to release in this quarter. So I guess with this, everything that we discussed today, what's going to happen in the Q1, we should have a very solid basis to have Starfleet out. And then once we have that out, everybody is going to be very much well on board when it comes to the knowledge they need to understand how to use the Star Trace token in order to get involved in this new phase. And actually, the white paper is going to be very much instrumental towards helping people achieve that and understanding that.
Awesome. So anything else you guys want to add before we wrap this up? Because we're coming up on an hour and a half and we went through it all. So.
Yeah.
Well, the selling point is roadmap right now. It's very hard to kind of get out of the roadmap mentality, which is kind of good from one angle. But if there is anything else outside of the roadmap, there are always plenty of things. But right now, to be honest, I have this tunnel vision looking at the roadmap. So please help us out. Is there anything you would like to ask, or the community? Is there any $1 million question?
The reason I did this was I didn't want to just read line by line through questions, because I knew the main stuff that the community generally wanted to know. So
Right.
we were able to pretty much cover it. We got into the lending platform stuff, how the node's going to work,
Everything.
timelines for boarding contract and Starfleet, and I think that was really a lot of the important stuff that the community wanted to hear. So thanks everybody. This was it's a little different format. I like it. So I mean, it's not. Granted, we don't have a roadmap to go over every office hours. So, but I mean, it was. I think this was a great way to talk about the roadmap. So I appreciate you guys. Let me change it up a little and do it this way, because I thought it was really impactful. So,
thank you so much for doing this, and it was also fun to have you with us, Amos. Hopefully the next time we can really do something more relaxed prior to the AML, some format where Branimir can also show his music skills. After all, he's a master in music science.
It's true.
Audio engineering.
I thought it was more of a fun thing.
Sorry.
Can't wait to get some EDM music from Amos.
Yeah,
and
I'm ready. I mean, Brandon could come on the channel anytime and let's do this,
That's right.
Yeah, we can do a collaboration, I guess. Yeah, there's one thing I would like to add to the ODN speak, though. Really just to call out anyone who's interested in contributing to the bug bounty and the whole process of getting this contract secure. Take a look at the contract if you have any experience with this type of work. That would be very helpful. And to the upcoming ODN warp release, because any help will be very valuable there. I know some people are running nodes on the testnet as well right now, so I suggest running the new testnet nodes as well. It's going to be very interesting. All kinds of feedback is welcome, even like feedback on the way things are written in the log. Whatever type of help is super valuable before we get the full launch of the mainnet. So yeah, calling everyone to jump in and on board and help on the technical development in any possible way. We're here. Find us on Discord, Twitter, and really the usual channels, the emails, where we're happy to converse on the technical topics.
Great. All right, everybody. Well, have a good Saturday. Go have some adult beverages and relax. And we'll see you guys soon.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.